Hey guys, in today's videos we are going to review what we've learned so far about trigonometry here in Chapter 5, and I'll split this up into a few different videos. First, we are going to convert from decimal degrees to degrees, minutes, seconds. So we know we have 113 whole degrees, and we have 0.273 remaining, and we will multiply that by 60, and we'll have 113 degrees and some minutes. Okay, so 0.273 times 60 gives us 16.38 minutes. Okay, so we have 113 degrees, we had 16 whole minutes, and we had 0.38 times 60 seconds. Okay, so we'll do 0.38 times 60, and that gives us 22.8 seconds. 113 degrees, 16 minutes, 22.8 seconds, and in seconds it's okay to leave the decimal. Okay, now we'll convert the other way. Negative 48 degrees, 12 minutes, 45 seconds. Okay, so we'll deal with the negative at the end. We've got 48 plus 12 over 60 for our minutes, and for our seconds, 45 over, and we actually multiplied by 60 twice over here to get that number of seconds. So we need to divide by 60 twice, so divided by 60 squared, and that will put us into decimal degrees. Now we had a negative, and we want to put that right here out in front of these parentheses. If we don't put it in front of parentheses, it only applies to the 48 degrees, not to the minutes and seconds. So we want to make sure that's out here. Okay, so negative, and then our parentheses, 48 plus 12 over 60 plus 45 over 60 squared, negative 48.2125 degrees, and there it is in decimal degrees. Find the lowest positive coterminal angle. So we need an angle measure that is coterminal with 3,852 degrees, and it needs to be between 0 and 360. So I'm going to subtract 360 as many times as I can before going negative, and I think I can subtract 10 360s. That would be 3,600. That should get me right in between 0 and 360. So 3,852 minus 10 times 360 is 252. So our lowest positive coterminal angle is 252 degrees. Now what happens if it's bigger than 360? I'll subtract another 360. What if it goes below 0? Then add 360 until you're between 0 and 360. So here is our answer for A, our lowest positive coterminal angle. B has two parts, find and show the reference angle. Okay, so I'll show it right here on a picture. 252 degrees goes past 90, past 180, not quite to 270, so somewhere in this range there is our angle in standard position. Okay, now I need to find this angle between the terminal side and the nearest x-axis, which happens to be 180 degrees. So 252 minus 180 is 72. So 72 degrees is B. So for B, 72 degrees. So that's where we have found that angle measure, and we're showing it right here in this picture. Okay, now this one is negative, so I need to add 360, and I think I can do it 2 times. So negative 538 plus 2 times 360 is 182. And that is between 0 and 360, so that is a good lowest positive coterminal angle. Okay, so next I will graph it, and it goes just a little past 180. Now this angle is probably a little more than 2 degrees, so it's exaggerated, but it only goes 2 degrees past 180. And I can find that measure by simply doing 182 minus 180, and that is 2 degrees. Okay, so we have found it, and we have shown it. All right, next, if secant theta is the square root of 34 over 3, so secant is reciprocal of cosine, so in a picture, that's going to look like this. So here's my theta, and this would be hypotenuse over adjacent. Okay, that's the reciprocal of cosine, so square root of 34 is the hypotenuse, 3 is the adjacent. Okay, so I need sine, which is opposite over hypotenuse. So I need to do Pythagorean Theorem. 3 squared plus b squared equals the square root of 34 squared. So that's 34 minus 9. So b squared is 25, and the square root of 25 is 5. So sine theta is opposite over hypotenuse. Okay, and I need to multiply top and bottom both by the square root of 34, so that's 5 root 34 over 34. The square root of 34, can that be simplified? So that's 17 times 2, and I'm not going to get any square numbers out of that, so this is my final answer. If tangent theta is square root of 57 over 8, so here's our picture. Okay, so that's opposite over adjacent, square root of 57 opposite, adjacent 8. Find cosecant, which is reciprocal of sine, so that's going to be hypotenuse over opposite. So I have 8 squared plus the square root of 57 squared equals c squared. Okay, so 64 plus 57, and that's 121. So I get 121 equals c squared. And the square root of 121 is 11. So I get a hypotenuse of 11. Okay, so cosecant, reciprocal of sine, hypotenuse over opposite. Cosecant theta is 11 over the square root of 57. Okay, now multiply top and bottom both by the square root of 57, so I get 11 root 57 over 57. Okay, now can that be simplified? I believe 3 goes into 57, so 57 divided by 3 is 19. I'm not going to get any square numbers out of that, so that is my final answer. Okay, use a calculator to determine the value. Okay, so I want to make sure that I'm in degree mode. So I'll check mode and degree is highlighted. If it's not, I need to go down there and highlight degree. Now secant, there's not a secant button, but secant is the reciprocal of cosine. So I can do 1 over cosine 58.492 degrees. And that is 1 point, and it says 3 decimal places here. So 1.913, and after the 3 is a 4. That's not big enough to bump that up. So 1.913 is my final answer. Okay, now cosine with degrees, minutes, and seconds. I do have a cosine button, so I can use that. Cosine 23, and then for degrees, I go to second and angle, option 1. Okay, then 42 minutes, so back to angle, option 2. And then 14 seconds, and seconds is alpha, and then plus has the 2 tick marks there, so that is seconds. Okay, so I get 0.915, and then the 6, that's big enough to bump that up, so it's 0.916. Sine 240 degrees. 240 is 30 degrees short of 270, so it's right there. And I'll make a right triangle out of it, and we use this reference angle. Okay, so 240 minus 180 is 60, so I have a 60 degree reference angle here. In a 30, 60, 90 triangle, it's 1, 2, square root of 3. 1 is the shortest, 2 is the longest, and that's the hypotenuse. Hypotenuse or radius is always positive, but the x and y values, opposite and adjacent, can be negative. Left is negative, down is negative. So sine here is opposite over hypotenuse, and that would be the negative square root of 3 over 2. And then cotangent 90, so that would be right here. So cotangent is the reciprocal of tangent, so it is adjacent over opposite. Okay, now let's go back here where we had a picture. Adjacent, that came from the x value. Opposite would come from the y value. Okay, now we're going to make this a true unit circle. So this radius is 1, which means this point right here is over 0 and up 1. So x over y is 0 over 1, or 0.